first job is to have an official welcome. So one of the reasons why this whole event is happening at all is because of the support of the Shire of Yarra Ranges. So would you please welcome Samantha Dunn, Councillor from the Shire of Yarra Ranges.
Just pop that down a little bit. That's better. Always a microphone adjustment for someone who's height challenged like me. Thank you, Charles. As Charles said, I'm Councillor Samantha Dunn. I'm the Ward Councillor in this region and a councillor with the Shire of Yarra Ranges. Before I kick off, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land, the Wurundjeri people, and pay deep respect to elders past and present. When I was asked to support this event, it was very easy for me to say yes to it. And my support came about from something I've noticed in the media of recent times. And what I've noticed is that there is becoming a real pro-nuclear flavour to our media. And I've noticed that a lot of people are saying that nuclear energy and nuclear power is a solution to climate change. Now, I don't believe that for 1 minute. I'm sure Helen will elaborate further on why that is not a good premise. There's a lot of powerful lobbyists and advocates out there for the nuclear industry. And as recently as only 3 weeks ago, the Australian Nuclear Science Technology Organisation ran an online poll. And that poll was indicating that 3 to 1 Australians who responded to that poll were actually against nuclear energy as part of Australia's solution. So ANSTO decided that they'd change the wording of the poll. So for all of those people who ticked the box that they were against nuclear power, all of a sudden their response became, it's one of the options for Australia. So don't doubt for 1 minute that there's a lot of powerful people out there trying to propagate that nuclear energy is the right direction for Australia. Now, I must say that once ANSTO was outed and it became very public knowledge that that online poll had changed, there was humbling apologies, but I think what that shows is that there is really a push to see this happen in this country. And it was because of those influences in the media and what's happening around that I was really, really pleased to support Dr. Helen Caldicott coming to Belgrave. I'm absolutely delighted that Helen chose to come to Belgrave and speak to you people. I think it's really important that you learn the issues around nuclear energy, because I also think it's really important that you take the knowledge you learn today back to your friends and back to your family, so we can once put an end to this notion that nuclear energy is a viable option for Australia. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Samantha Dunn, and thank you to the Shire of Yarra Ranges for its support for this event. Genie is the Global Energy Network Institute, and today is about Genie is about 3 big ideas. Number 1, it's about renewable energy. Number 2, it's about a grid. It's about linking energy generating facilities all around the world, literally like the internet. And when the idea of this was first promulgated by Buckminster Fuller, the internet didn't exist. And thirdly, the issue of climate change. Now, the whole question of climate change and clean energy and whether nuclear is an option or not, the big debate to have in our own minds is, does human behaviour impact on climate change? And from Genie's perspective, it really doesn't matter whether humans are impacting on climate change or not. The real question is, how is the planet doing? How's the planet, are we using the planet sensibly? And Genie is an educational body, and you are here to learn some ideas that you can use as a small group of people to say, hey, what am I going to do with that information? So who started Genie? Peter Myson in 1986 in San Diego was the founder, and he started this organisation to promote the interlinking of energy grids and renewable energy generation based on the work of Buckminster Fuller. Now, Buckminster Fuller was a guy who was born in Boston in 1896, died in 1983 at the age of 87, to save you doing the maths. And Bucky, as he called himself, or as he was affectionately known, Buckminster, he's the only Buckminster I've ever heard of, but be that as it may, Bucky dedicated his life to making this planet work for everybody, and not just for 20%. And you think about, in the work that I do, when I talk about with audiences, do you realise that if you are earning $30,000 a year and you live in Australia, you're in the 10% wealthiest people in the world? It's quite amazing. You know, we think we're having a tough time. $30,000 living in Australia, you're in the 10% wealthiest people in the world. And Bucky said, hey, this doesn't seem sensible that the planet only works for 20%. Today and yesterday and tomorrow, 20,000 people approximately will die of starvation. The UN last week published numbers that suggested 1 billion adults are earning less than $1 a day. So Genie is about making a change on that, and it was based on the work of Buckminster Fuller that said, how do we need to behave on this planet, on spaceship Earth? This concept that, hey, we're on this tiny little ball, we are all linked with each other, how should we be behaving? If we think of this as a spaceship, how would we be behaving? Would we be consuming resources as we're presently using them? And Bucky said, no. One idea for you. He says, we have to act consistently with the principles of the universe that created this planet. And one of those is, think about how much energy it takes to produce a gallon of oil. In his book Critical Path, Bucky calculated that it costs $1 million in universal terms. $1 million to produce a gallon of oil. And his view was, don't use a gallon of oil unless you're more value than $1 million. It's an interesting idea, isn't it? How much value are you adding in what you're doing? And that's provoked me in my own journey, and that's why I'm delighted to support Genie, because it makes me constantly think, am I behaving consistently with the functioning of spaceship Earth? Now, is nuclear energy consistent with keeping this spaceship going? Dr. Helen Caldecott will speak to you. Today is also a day about provoking you to take action. As Margaret Mead on that quote up there says, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. And you start to think, gee whiz, what power do you have to change the debate in Australia? And my answer to you is, you have huge power. If you share an idea with your circle of friends, who then shares it with their circle of friends, it makes a difference. And today is about that opportunity to learn some heavy-duty facts, usable facts, not so much heavy-duty, that you are more informed to have a sensible debate. And right now, as I say, the debate around climate change is missing the point. It's not whether or not human beings are impacting on climate change, it's are we behaving sustainably for a planet that will then survive? There are plenty of commentators who say no, there are plenty of commentators who say yes. Now, what's happening in the debate? Well, let me hold up this article. Can you read that? Get your glasses. Yesterday's Age newspaper, Saturday Age, page 9 if you've got it at home. Solar power at night, yes, with a grain of salt. Now, there's a big article in the Age talking about, in fact, how practical solar thermal power is. Malcolm Green will be telling you more about that. But just think about this. Oh, have you got this, Willem?
I thought I had it, but I don't.
It's a great article, and I commend the idea to you that if we put up an array of solar thermal generators of just 168 kilometres square, which is a tiny dot on the map of Australia, that would produce enough solar energy for all of Australia's needs.